You're good.
All right, hello. This is chapter 3, The Bridge to Academic Equity by Anthony Cruz and Orion Flores.
Oh,
All right, so planning for standards referenced assessment. So it starts with the students because they're the most important participants in the process and they're the heart of the education. So select pairs of standards um, to ground correlating content targets when thinking about assessments for every content area. Uh, Learning the language of subjects like language arts, mathematics, science, and social studies has to correlate with learning the concepts and skills of those subjects. Integrating language and content reinforce each other. In assessment, in language proficiency, we focus on language and content, which gives context for communicating messages um, in those contents. All right, so getting organized for assessment. Knowing your students is very important to understanding the foundation of standards-based assessments. Learning is strengthened when students have the ability to analyze and the messages that they're trying to articulate orally and in written language. And you can use that information to make charts or graphs. Um, Limiting the dependability of print will allow students, including ELL students, to process information and demonstrate their knowledge easier. So I included a chart that was in the chapter 2. It talks about like the individual student variables, so things that you have to take into account when you're planning for assessment in the top right, and then the bottom was it's also a breaking it down, kind of the things that you have to look for when you're planning for assessment. All right, the language of mathematics. Key uses of academic language, such as discuss, explain, argue, and recount, help educators identify their grade level language expectations. As Judith, I don't know how to say their last name, but she states um, in the chapter that increasing learning in math through the use of language instruction helps to give students opportunities to discuss, um, give opportunities to actively use math language to discuss situations that involve math. And for ELL students, their interpretation of mathematics symbols may differ because of their cultural background, which means all students need to learn the technical language of mathematics. So there are just some keywords that in mathematics that I included in the bottom right that would be important for ELL students to learn. That way they can be successful. And then manipulatives for mathematics, manipulatives such as data graphs, calculators, protractors, rulers, yardsticks, paper clips, number lines, clocks, blocks, and cubes. All right, so the language of language arts. So some sets of standards to include. We want to encourage academic conversations between students, use language functions to relate to the purpose of language arts, identify language associated with the content area, and then language development standards for language arts includes a progression of learning language through scaffolding in each of the levels, which can also help assist ELL students. So there's a standard that I included right there, and then it differentiates between the academic achievement that we're shooting for and academic language proficiency that we're also shooting for the students. And then here are some of the levels that it included in the book. So level 1 is identify character traits based on evidence from oral text, and then goes into identify details related to character traits based on evidence, identify character traits based on evidence from oral text and, graphic support and make predictions from character traits based on evidence and oral text, and then infer, I think that says character traits based on evidence. So, I mean, it just builds as the levels progress. And then at the bottom, types of discourse, so key use of academic language. So these are the things that we're shooting for the students in language arts. So discussion, explanation, argument, and the ability to recount what they've learned. And then some instructional support for language arts. So, we could use graphic organizers, student-generated posters, word phrases, and sentence or learning walls, and illustrated sentence strips. So I included like a little graphic organizer, which is a concept map.
So the language of social studies. So the college, career, and civic life, the 3C framework for social studies standards is centered on an inquiry arc. So the framework emphasizes the disciplinary concepts and practices that support students as they develop the capacity to know, analyze, explain, and argue about interdisciplinary challenges in our social world. So language is central to exploring and understanding social content. So using cooperative learning strategies to promote oral interaction. So the new generation standards emphasize on communication and collaboration. These oral language expectations spiral throughout the grades through rich conversation that foster critical thinking and content understanding. So how can teachers implement these standards to ensure all students have opportunities to practice holding academic language? So academic talk must be intentionally planned so that students can develop the academic discourse within and across content areas. Cooperative learning promotes academic conversation among students, increases their metacognitive awareness, and encourages friendship. So using graphic and visual supports for instruction and assessment. Graphic and visual representations are crucial for acquiring the language and content of social studies. By incorporating these forms of support into instruction and assessment, teachers can readily facilitate their students' oral language and literacy development. Because graphic and visual supports provide avenues to meaning making for language learners, they need to be incorporated into instructional assessment. So some manipulatives that we can use are maps, globes, aerial and satellite photographs, timelines, atlases, compasses, video clips, and multicultural artifacts. So the language of other content areas. Language is everywhere. Whenever a student is exposed to content, language is always its partner. So the language and skills associated with a healthy lifestyle, physical development, and the rules of the game activities associated with physical education classes assist students in interacting with the world around them. For students to cross the bridge gap to academic equity, each and every one must have opportunities to develop his or her fullest potential in every class every day. And then that's pretty much it for our presentation. And at the end of this video, we're going to upload an activity that's 3 questions that we'll put into the discussion thread. And yeah, that's pretty much it.